Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. I'm sure you've noticed the difference between the first segment and this one. We are back. The machines have now agreed to work with us. So yeah, the hashtag is Morning at NTV. You can also stream us live and drop in your comments. NTV Uganda, that's on Facebook and YouTube pages. The conversation has been on the national dialogue, and today we have seen a new development. Grab your copies if you haven't, and that's on the Daily Monitor on page 5. And DP pulls out of national dialogue. So, and just the other day we're seeing Gemma join the iPod. So what does this mean? And are we really going to have a national dialogue? So in studios, I'm joined by Mr. Frank Rusa. He is the Executive Secretary of iPod. iPod is the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much, Marla.
Next to him, I'm joined by the usual suspect, the usual face on the show, Mr. Chifampa Siraje. He is a political analyst. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. Let's start with that. DP pulling out of the national dialogue, yet they were part of the team that came up with the conditions for the dialogue. Mr. Rusa.
For starters, let me first give a clarification about the two things. DP is talking about the national dialogue. The national dialogue is the process that has been led by the Elders Forum, working with the Inter-Religious Council, that have been trying to put together a comprehensive dialogue to bring to many constituencies together to discuss a wide range of things.
Right.
That's the national dialogue. But we also have an inter-party dialogue for which DP is still a part of. So it is clear that distinction needs to be made clear.
Right. They have pulled out from the
national dialogue
and not from iPod.
Not
They're
from
still
iPod,
a member of iPod.
Yeah.
So what does this mean?
So I think that DP and many other parties have demonstrated over time that they are committed to a national dialogue or to the principle of dialogue. However, they had conditions that they set to be sure to get good outcomes out of this dialogue. These conditions have been expressed to the Intelligence Council and the Elders Forum, who are the conveners of the national dialogue. I think DP is expressing dissatisfaction with how that has been handled, but I'm sure the conversations are going to continue, and hopefully they will be able to find a middle ground, and the dialogue will go ahead. Hopefully.
Okay, Mr. Chifampa Siraje.
Yes.
By the time opposition is actually coming up with the conditions for dialogue, DP was part of it. And they came up with the 7-pointer condition list. So what did you make of this particular pulling out right now? Is it that they feel, okay, fine, we were part of coming up with the 7 pointers, but now we are rethinking the whole thing?
Now, first of all, I need to make some clarification, like Mr. Rusa Frank said.
Right.
Political parties are there to play politics. They are not NGOs. And politics has to be at the helm of whatever they do. Now, they say, the argument that I read from that story is that they were saying that there should be freedom of assembly for all the participating parties. Now, they say that their freedoms have been violated by the government. Now, they say that you cannot dialogue with someone who is at the same time who is infringing on your freedoms and rights as a political party. Then you go and sit down with that person. But however, I'm very optimistic if the issues that were raised by DP are paid attention to, DP is very much willing to get back to the negotiation table.
You think so?
I think so, because I was part of this. There is a forum where I sit with the Inter-Religious Council. We designed this at Popo Memorial Hotel. And members of political parties were all consulted. You remember, NRM was consulted, DP was consulted, FDC, and many other political parties, and they all agreed that they agreed to the national dialogue. However, the conditions they set, some parties had different conditions that they were setting. The issue of the agenda, what are we going to dialogue about, was not very clear. Some were saying that we can only dialogue if we talk about peaceful transfer of power. And NRM was saying that if we dialogue to transfer power, because power is competed for, not just negotiated for, we cannot go into that dialogue. Not until they harmonized positions and they came up with an agenda. Then political parties on the opposition came up with their points, which they say that they should be respected, they should be put in place before the dialogue takes place.
Right. Yesterday we were hosting Madam Magi Chigosi. Of course, she is part of the Elders Forum, and I'm sure we're going to get her bite. And she pointed out the agenda of this particular national dialogue. And questions came in from members of the public, and they're saying, Is this feasible? Is this practical? Is it another forum where we're just going to see a lot of talk and no action? Mr. Rusa.
For starters, I have attended a couple of meetings. IPOD is one of the initiators as an organization of the National Dialogue Process. It's one of the group of 6. So in that capacity, I know about the structure of the National Dialogue, and I will speak in that regard. The argument that the Elders Forum and the Interreligious Council are making to this country is that dialogue should go beyond just the politics. The argument is that this country has had deep-seated issues that stretch back from its formation, maybe even as far back as 1962, even before. The challenges of this country go beyond the current contestations of politics today and go to the future. They think that in order to have a comprehensive dialogue, we cannot just focus on the politics, although that's very important. We should also focus on other issues, things like national values, things like, is the economy working, things like service delivery, many other issues. And they think that we should take this conversation beyond just the politicians. Let's get the business community, let's get the students, the farmers, the teachers, all sorts of people involved in this kind of conversation. So what they have is a very comprehensive outlook. And they seem to suggest that in order to guarantee that the outcomes of this dialogue shall be recognized, they will need the buy-in of all stakeholders. That's why they're trying to involve as many people as possible. But that is really their view. On the side of the political parties are also making an argument, as we can see from the media. They are saying that in as much as all these issues are pertinent, there is the elephant in the room. Politics is a serious issue. And if we do not resolve the political issue question first, we may not have a chance to resolve other issues.
And that's the
so that seems to be the issue.
And the question has been, and I really, of course, as the executive secretary of IPOD, of course, IPOD being the umbrella of all the political parties here, of course, NRM, DP, FDC, UPC, GEMA, the new baby in the team. Dealing with the egos of these leaders, how has it been, Rusa, before I come to Mr. Chifampa? How has it been just putting together these people? I know, fine, IPOD is an informal association, but of course, if we are to move as a team, especially with regards to the national dialogue and the launch that is just a few days to go, how will those dynamics be addressed?
First and foremost, the real, what we do at IPOD and as a facilitator, maybe just to make it clear,
right.
I am the country representative of the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, which hosts IPOD, so we are the secretariat. And ours is to facilitate the platform. I think that what is very critical in any healthy multi-party system across the world is that it is possible to have cooperation side by side with competition. In as much as that you have different parties with different programs, you're also aspiring to serve this country. So you should have an amount of mutual respect for each other. So this platform gives them room to come and say that outside your competitive, the competitive terrain of multi-party politics, can we come into the room and talk about Uganda? Can we put Uganda first? And I need to tell this country that it's amazing watching these people in this space. The amount of respect they accord to each other. They come and attend these meetings. The secretary generals come. They sit, they talk to each other as with respect, and I always feel inspired that if this spirit that I see demonstrated in the rooms of IPOD could actually get out to the national scene, this country could actually realize that Uganda is bigger than all of us. But so yes, I agree, from time to time the issues of ego may rise up, the issues of competition and hard lines can come up, but at the end of the day, these people had also signed this memorandum of understanding. They had one before, the first one in 2010. It expired in 2016. There was a very tough election that happened in this country. But they came back and committed to sign another memorandum of understanding, meaning that they are committed, they understand the importance of staying in the room, to engage, to negotiate, even during difficult times. Because this country, the hope for this country is going to really depend upon political leaders taking their responsibility and treating each other with respect and dealing with the issues of this country, putting them first.
Mr. Chifampa, you're also a politician. Paint the picture for us.
Now, the readmission of GEMA into IPOD is very much important, paramount. Why do I say so? He might have not told you, but from the corridors of IPOD we hear, there are two extreme individuals or organizations in IPOD.
Right.
You have NRM at the extreme, you have FDC at the extreme. Now, you need someone who would harmonize the positions of the two. Everything that NRM will raise, FDC will automatically oppose it.
Yes.
Likewise, the reverse is also very true. So JEMA has been known from time immemorial. We were part of iPod when Honorable Sanchanjo was in Parliament for much in the West. And the members that were sent to the iPod as being representatives of JEMA were the best, I think so. And iPod admitted to this, that JEMA contributed a lot to the progress of iPod. Their absence affected iPod so much because at the summit, and I don't know the structures of iPod, there is summit and what?
The council and the summit.
The council, where members from political parties sit,
yes,
is the council. At the council level, where JEMA sent its members, I'm telling you, all documents, all papers, all statements were written by JEMA members because they were more technical than political. So I think the coming of JEMA to the iPod has brought in fresh blood, and I'm very optimistic that there will be more progress, and this time round will be iPod will be more visible, and people will see what iPod is doing. But for the last 2.5 years or so, the JEMA has not been there. Not much has been said, and not much has been seen.
Are you trying to say that Mr. Osman Basarilwa comes with a lot of weight to the team?
By the way, I need to tell you, he has not told you the members that go there. As members of parliament usually do not go there. They only have secretary generals, they have one female representative and another member. For us, since we only have one member of parliament, we send people who are not members of parliament as well. Yeah.
Okay. But of course, there's some influence from the members of parliament as well.
For sure.
Mr. Rusa, let me get you in on this one. We're just a few days shy. Of course, this is the last day of October. November is tomorrow, and we're having 2 weeks, roughly 3 weeks, to the launch of the National Dialogue, and the President will be the person presiding over this particular launch. What are your strategies with regards to dealing with this new development, DP pulling out of the National Dialogue, and we know that iPod was coming in as a team?
Thank you very much for that question. I would not really speak a lot about the plans and strategies for getting this off the ground, because that's the job for the Elders Council and Elders Forum and the IRCU, who are taking a lead on this. But however, as a facilitator of the conversation going on between the political parties, we will do everything that is within our means to get the political parties together at the highest possible levels, to take a position on this, to see how best they can help the Elders Forum come up with agreeable terms, to see a roadmap to this dialogue. Because in principle, as I said earlier, Mala, I need to say this, that I have got it straight from the horse's mouth, from the leaders of this party at the presidential and secretary general level, that they are very committed to dialogue, in principle.
Who is this? Mr. Norbert Mao?
Yeah, I know that Mr. Norbert Mao is very committed to dialogue, in principle, the idea of dialogue. But what we are hearing is about the structures, the modalities, the convening, really the mechanics of it.
Right.
These are not really things, these are not deal breakers. These are things that can be fixed. These are things that can be improved. Maybe a few conversations between the Interreligious Council and the Elders Forum and the political leaders will sort that one out. So it is not doomsday.
He's actually on record, and I will quote him, and he says, "We are not satisfied with the framework proposed and the environment in which the dialogue will be convened. We believe that for there to be meaningful and fruitful dialogue, the correct environment should exist." What is this correct environment? Are there things that we're not seeing as the public?
I do not know what he really meant by the correct environment, but I know that the conditions that they set out, I think in going to any dialogue or any negotiation for that matter, both parties to the negotiation have to be clear about the fairness of the process, whether all the issues will be on the agenda, whether the outcomes will be respected. These are some of the guarantees people like to get before they go into dialogues. I therefore do not blame any of the parties for being concerned or particularly sensitive to the particular conditions that are associated with this process. However, what I would like to emphasize is there's nothing cast in stone, because the idea of negotiation is about creating spaces. So I believe that the Elders Forum, which is led by Justice Ogola, who is very, very senior in these things, should be able to find an agreeable formula that answers to the concerns of DP in particular and other political parties. But we shouldn't lose track of the importance of dialogue. Okay. Both at the party level and also at the national level.
Mr. Chifampa, what do you make of this particular statement by Mr. Robert, now the DP president?
First of all, like Mr. Frank is saying,
yes,
all political parties agree to the dialogue in principle. And the only challenges that the contradictions that are within the dialogue is that the president is going to be part of the dialogue and is coming as a guest of honor to launch the dialogue. Probably that is one of the contradictions. However, you remember when you had the presidential debates in 2016, the first debate, the president refused to turn up, and he went on a campaign and said that these were school debates, and I didn't see any need of me being part of that debate. However, when they engaged him several times, the Interreligious Council and the Elders Forum, he eventually showed up on the second debate. So I hope so that these issues, I do not know whether Honorable Norbert Mao has officially written to the organizers of the dialogue to tell them that me, I'm pulling out, as a party we're pulling out. However, I know there could be some backdoor negotiations and talks on how some issues will be improved so that the dialogue will take place. Because I'm telling you, I've attended meetings where Honorable Norbert Mao and the entire DP delegation has been part, and these people agree to the dialogue in principle.
You know, yesterday we hosted Madam Maggie Chigozi, and she laid out the agenda for this particular dialogue, and she gave us 8 points to it. And part of it was corruption. And the feedback we were getting was very, you know, elaborate. And people were saying, okay, fine, you know what, these are the people who are going to be represented. She said, okay, fine, there are many facets, but we can't have the 40 million Ugandans to be, you know, actually come to the national dialogue, so we'll get representatives. But people are asking, if the people who are going to sit on the table are actually corrupt, how do we address that, you know, bit of corruption? But let's take a listen to what she actually had to say.
Of 8 items.
That what are those, if you could run us through them briefly?
Okay, very, very quickly. Values.
Just the headline, all right?
Values, Ugandan values. Then the economy. Is it, you know, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. How do we bring that together? On access to our resources, land, water, the forests, oil, minerals.
Okay, we've lost that technical hitch. The team is working on it. So yeah, the people who are going to be sitting at the table have been accused time and again for corruption. So how will they have that conversation of corruption, Mr. Rusa, before we go to Chifampa?
Yes, for starters, that's a interesting point that she raises, and the questions that are coming from the public feedback is also interesting too. But let me say that from what I have heard from the organizers of the National Dialogue, this is not going to be led by the usual political faces and leaders that we know about. I am actually hearing that on the launch they are looking forward to having about 2,000 delegates coming. So
from other countries?
No, from Uganda, from different configurations.
Okay.
So you are not having the typical, it's not the same faces that you've been hearing about. It's going to be delegates from different faces of our society to discuss now, to get into the substance. For example, the argument is that, for example, if we want to say, how do we improve the electoral system in Uganda? That should not be a conversation for only politicians.
Right.
That should be a conversation for us, even voters, for teachers, for religious leaders, for cultural institutions. What electoral system works for Uganda? So the people coming to have these conversations in the various thematic areas are not the usual people we see in Parliament or on TV every day. It is Ugandans coming up. That is the dream that they have. And I think it is interesting in that regard.
The dream that they have.
That's the dream that they would like to execute. That is, hopefully, if it takes off, that's what we shall be seeing.
Mr. Chifampa.
My only concern is that I do not know, the organizers must answer this question, the criteria that they are going to use to get those those only few members that are supposed to be part of it. Because I know for the fact that Uganda, like I said several times, that we have institutional decay here, that someone will be given a responsibility of getting members who are going to be part of that, and look for a sister, a relative, or a friend to come and be part of it. So I just want to know if border cyclists are going to be represented. What criteria are you going to use? Are you going to go in the organized groups of the border, pick someone, the traders? How are you going to go to Kasita? You understand? So I just need to know the criteria from which they are going to pick members. The farmers, how are they going? Because farmers are not organized and cooperatives and whatever in Uganda. So the criteria that is going to be used to have the members that are going to represent them in this national dialogue. Secondly, there are several issues that have been talked about several times. The issue of corruption, which I don't think that you need to call every Ugandan to have all Ugandans represented to say how you're going to fight corruption. This is not how other countries have done it. Maybe we need to know, do we need to sit down to know how to fight corruption as a country? Don't we have enough laws? Can't we enact laws that can curb corruption and graft in the government institutions? We need to sit down as a country.
Yes.
The issue of sharing of national resources, I think that one is something that is viable, that we can look at it. But again, we have laws that are governing the national resources. They belong to government, and government will use them whenever it feels it needs to use the resources at hand.
Okay.
So anyway, we're unfortunate that we didn't get the full agenda of what is going to be dialogued about. But my prayer is that the dialogue goes on.
Speaking of corruption, yesterday the government actually approved zero tolerance corruption policy 2018. With this, of course, coming just a few days ahead of the launch of the national dialogue. We've always seen policies, like he's saying, but nothing is enforced in a magnitude that people can appreciate. Mr. Rusa, can you come in on that one?
You know, you echo sentiments that have been so prevalent in this country. The whole idea of mistrust of everything, and it's because of what people have gone through that there's all this kind of mistrust. One of the interesting things that I've learned from the national dialogue process, talking to Justice Ogola and the team there, is that there's a whole focus which has been put on implementation modalities.
Okay.
Meaning that over and above, after the dialogue ends and we have some sort of final position, what are we going to do to ensure that what we have agreed upon is actually implemented? And there's going to be we're going to put a lot of time in that aspect, which I think is also an interesting aspect about that process. Whether it will work 100%, I cannot speak, but the fact that thought has been put to it is a good indicator. So that it doesn't look like another talk show or another event like this.
Exactly.
People need to see that there's a bit of a difference. And I hope, but these are questions that the organizers of the National Dialogue should be able to answer more authoritatively.
All right, Mr. Chifampa, your closing remarks with regards to what you should be expecting to see in the coming days, in a nutshell, 30 seconds.
I hope that DP will come back to the negotiation table.
Yes.
And even just getting these parties together, just to sit down, even if they do not agree, but just sitting down will be a success, will be victory that needs to be celebrated. Okay,
thank you so much. Frank Rusa, Executive Secretary, IPOD, the inter-party organization for dialogue. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Mala. It was nice.
Thank you. Mr. Chifampa Siraja, political analyst, thank you so much for making time as well.
You're welcome.
That has been the conversation. What's your view on this? Keep your views coming. We always look at them and we appreciate your views. The hashtag is Morning at NTV. You can also stream us live and drop in your comments. NTV Uganda, that's on Facebook and YouTube pages. Morning at NTV still continues. Up next is Take Note with Flavia Tumusime. Keep it here.